Got it? Okay, here we go. Ready? Boom. Okay, gentlemen, so obviously this isn't a live broadcast, so if you don't like an answer, if you stumble, if you mess up, whatever, don't worry about it. We'll restart it, we can restate the question, we can do all that stuff, so don't want you to sweat any of that in terms of, if you say, hey, wait, I want to go back, or I want to say that in a different way, totally fine.
Sounds good.
It's all good. So, yeah, we're just having a conversation here, and you guys are you're good. We've got the mics on you, but you don't have to worry about looking at the cameras. You can just look at me, and we're good to go.
Sure.
So start first, if you could, by introducing yourselves again, so we have it on camera. Full name and what your title is in terms of in ACO.
So my name is Rich Ferreira. I am the Vice President of the Mechanical Services Group for the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay.
And I'm Tareq. I'm the General Manager for George H. Wilson.
Okay. Okay, and how long have you been a member of the ACO family?
Full-time, 22 years. I also was a pipe fitter during my summer and winter breaks through college. I'm a second generation ACO employee.
Okay.
Yep.
So tell us, those of us like myself who don't know a lot about ACO, where is it based? What is it? Where were you doing this work when you started doing it?
So I was born and raised in San Jose.
Okay.
And so I went to school in Chico, and summer and winter breaks, came back to San Jose, a signatory employee for local 393 at the time during college, and was a pipe fitter. ACO is based out of LA, out of Glendale. New headquarters is in Pasadena. So yeah, it's going well.
Okay.
Just recently, so
Okay.
we relocated.
Okay, and Tareq, what's your background in terms of?
Well, I've been with ACO for 13 years. I've been in the industry close to 30 years. I grew up in Hayward. I went to San Jose State, studied mechanical engineering, and I worked for some of ACO's competitors prior to that, and this has been home since.
Okay, so tell us, if you could, give us kind of some more details in terms of what your job entails. What are the duties? What are the responsibilities that kind of fall on your shoulders?
Sure. So I manage the Mechanical Services Division, which kind of comprises of small service and repairs, maintenance, and we also do retrofit, tenant improvement, construction. So I manage 4 geographical areas around the Bay Area, 3 different sales managers who have different sales teams underneath them. So I managed that book of business. It's roughly about a $100 million business just in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I drive business. That's what I do.
Okay, and how long, and so you said you started out working and you kind of worked your way up. So what was the progression like, or how does that progression work?
So in 98, after graduating college, I entered the local apprenticeship out of Burlingame, local 467. Summer and winters through college, I love to work with my hands, not to mention it doesn't hurt when you go to work with some of your best friends. It's always kind of very fulfilling, and I really just kind of fell in love with it throughout the summers and made that my full-time career. June 8th, 1998, and I went through a 5-year apprenticeship after that in construction. And after that, I ran some pretty decent-sized jobs as a journeyman. John Hansen, who was the president of NorCal, gave me an opportunity to go ahead and come into the office as a project engineer to assist on some larger jobs and manage those from the office side rather than the field side. And turned out pretty well. Did pretty well for myself. And a couple years after that, I was knocking on Steve Tuttle's door, who is my current boss now. He's the Senior Vice President of Mechanical Services for the North Region, and came into the office as a project manager. Was a project manager for about 5 or 6 years. And then he made me a sales manager after I booked a lot of business down in the South Bay in San Jose. And as a sales manager probably for another 4 years. And they just promoted me last year.
Okay, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Tareq, how about you in terms of how you progressed?
So I
what
came.
your job entails and how it progressed.
I came in as a project manager because I had already previous experience with other companies, and right away probably booked quite a bit of work. One of the areas I primarily worked on in the beginning was pharmaceutical and biotech, which is a big market in Bay Area. So that was where I sort of got some name recognition in the industry doing that kind of work. I've been doing that all the way till October, or I should say September 30th of this year. And then this opportunity came along, and so I've switched roles from being a project manager to a general manager, which is more now in line with not running projects per se, but looking after the enterprise, looking after the business, growing the business, and so that's the change for me.
Okay, okay. So one of the things we're talking about in this documentary, and talking about a lot of different things obviously, but one of them, Rich, that you kind of mentioned, and I'm curious for both of you guys, obviously you had an apprenticeship, and obviously George H. Wilson has union labor. So I'm wondering if you guys could speak a little to the benefits of having union labor in terms of the training and the quality, but also in terms of what it means to have, for the employees to be as part of a union, right? I mean, that's
It's like it's a fraternity, It's definitely it's a group of people that implement training processes to really kind of bring you up on, historical practices, current practices, possibly future practices of execution, implementation, troubleshooting techniques. So it's a great training course. But also too, for people just coming out of high school or, at a point in their lives where they don't really know what kind of career path to go down, but they are hardworking, they're diligent. It's a great career to go into just because it teaches you responsibility. It's on-site, hands-on training, but also too, you get a pension, you get medical and health benefits, vision, dental, all these things, are all wrapped up into one package. So it's been really satisfying, and I wouldn't change it for the world, to be honest with you. Yeah.
So is that something that drew you to it in terms of knowing all those sort of benefits that came along with it?
Most of it, yeah. Most of it was the work. I love the work. I loved being outside. It's heavy work. It's challenging. At the end of the day, you get to sit back and see a physical product that you built with your hands or collaborated with others to, succeed and build. Yeah, I've always had whether it be sports or just yard work or something. My family had a farm in Sacramento, so even helping them dig ditches or whatever it took, it was just always satisfying for me to put in a hard day's work. So.
You consider what you did and do art? Like, because you said you go around and see something that you built. Do you see sort of an artistic quality to that?
Maybe a little bit. I'm not going to take credit for that kind of, view or vision on construction, because it really is a lot of the architects that obviously come up with those visions. And, being in the trade for so many years, you see the trends in architecture, going from tech and biofarm, and they're drastically different. So every building has always kind of been different and unique. So I just have always liked that nothing is ever the same. Similar practices, similar execution, but different environments. Okay. So that's what I've always liked about it.
Okay. So talk to us a little bit, both of you, about ACO in terms of what exactly your company does. Because obviously you're taking over George H. Wilson, and we'll get to that. But in terms of just ACO, what is ACO?
Well, So ACO has been also around for a long time, since I believe 1934. And one of the key differences for ACO is that it empowers the project managers to own a project from cradle to grave. That has been the distinguishing mark of ACO. I've worked with other employers where you have estimating departments, you have engineering department, you have project management department, and all of them kind of work separately. Here, the project manager is the center. He drives the design, he estimates, he wants to make sure the project is executed, he answers in front of the customer, he looks after the well-being of the financials of the project as well as the execution of the project, the timely delivery of the project. And so that formula has separated us from all our competitors. And when you look at the labor hours, whether it's piping or sheet metal, we are cut above all of those, and we're probably the largest self-perform contractor in the western United States. No other, our second best competitor is a distant second. So that is something to be said about the success that it brings. And the other thing I learned, so most people, just like Rich is a good example of it, these are people that come in from college, they go through engineering, they go through these training programs until they're ready to become a project manager. So that in itself, and going through understanding different systems, gives you huge advantage over your competitor. If you're sitting in front of a customer and they say, well, I want to change that, I want to do this, you're able to, on the fly, be able to give them the pros and the cons and some level of cost with comfortable, with comfort. So you can say, hey, this is going to cost you about this much, this will save you, this will cost you more, etc. So that's the big difference for ACO. Other than that, ACO is also a company who values customer relationships, and so we always try to avoid, lawsuits, arguments, and all that. And when you look at our repeat business, that is huge. People want to work with us because they know that at the end of the day, we're going to, whatever problems that may exist, we'll work it out. And so those are all the great qualities that we bring into this company. And it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen yesterday. This has been going on for a long time, and hopefully it's going to be here for a long time after.
Okay, great. So you said the largest by far over your second place, company in terms of self-made projects or self-managed projects. How rare is that for a company to have it where it's cradle to the grave?
It's pretty rare. Most of our competitors, like I said, they have those departments. And so project manager may not be well versed in estimating. The dollars speak for itself. We're a $1.5 billion company now, and I think our closest competitor is somewhere in the 700 to 800 million. So that's how different we are. Another thing to remember is that because we also have the capability to design build, a lot of time we're sitting at a table with the architects, with the owners, and we are able to drive to a budget. We can design to a budget. Whereas if you go to traditional method, architect draws a building, they give it to engineers, the engineers design a mechanical system, whether it's plumbing or HVAC, and then they put it out in the market and they have a shock. Oh my God, why does it cost this much? Well, let's change that. And so we don't have that shock. We can come in, and personally I have many examples of that where we've gone in from day one, establish a budget, work to that, deliver the savings, make sure it's successful, and walk away.
Okay, that's awesome. So I know a lot about George H. in terms of some of the iconic buildings and projects they've been a part of here in this county. What does ACO have on its resume in terms of any iconic projects in the Bay Area that folks would be familiar with? Or
Levi Stadium, Salesforce Tower, just to name two. Google campus, multiple Google campuses. They're obviously a very large customer. Facebook campuses, at least present company. I'm sure everybody in this room knows all those sites. We've done numerous historical retrofits. 301 Battery Street, the old Federal Reserve. We did a huge mechanical retrofit and also control/automation retrofit up there. But those are just a few.
Okay.
You know, there's a huge list, and I'm sure anybody that's going to see this is probably going to be very disappointed that they're not in that very short list.
Right, right. So Levi's is obviously a big one. Was that, tell us about that in terms of how that process went and what went into it?
Do you know the history or?
I know. I didn't work on it
Yeah.
directly, so
Oh, okay.
we are a big company, and so it was another team member. And from what I can tell you, it was a fast track project. It required quite a bit of resources, and specifically, we delivered the HVAC side on that one, not the plumbing. But the sheer number of people that worked on there in itself was a challenge, but it got done on time and on budget.
One probably, we won an award for the Stanford Central Energy Facility out there, obviously at Stanford University. A massive central plant that provides chill water to most of their critical facilities around their campus. 2 5 million gallon containers full of chill water, and then one single 2.4 million gallon container of hot water that gets distributed throughout the campus. They have roughly about 24 miles of underground piping out there at this facility, so it was a huge deal. It won a lot of awards, and we're still doing work there today, doing some minor modifications, but it's a pretty impressive facility.
Wow. Okay, okay. How about personally for you guys, what's been sort of the project that you've taken the most pride in, or that has maybe been the most challenging, and it was therefore that much more satisfying to overcome those challenges? Is there anything that stands out, or?
Sure. There are many iconic buildings we can talk about. We're in a day and age where a lot of clients expect us to keep their confidentiality. So maybe at the interest of not putting some of the names out, the things that strike with me, the first biotechnology building in San Francisco, because the city itself wasn't known for being a site for that. That was one. The second one was a project that I worked on that required from design to completion in 9 months for a biotech, which required not only laboratory clean rooms but also biosafety level 3, which has all these regulatory requirements, and we had to design in 3 months, build in 6 months. It was unheard of, never has happened before. We delivered it. Another iconic project that we're almost finished is a whole campus with LEED Platinum, so very energy efficient. Again, thermal energy storage tanks, chilled water, radiant ceiling panels, radiant floors. So some of these really cool projects that are not just, hey, it's an air conditioner. It's far beyond that.
Okay. Okay.
I like the retrofit stuff.
Okay.
Tareq is new construction. I'm service.
Okay.
So Tareq deals in ground up, where I deal in existing building infrastructures. I did a cooling tower replacement for Adobe in San Jose. Sounds pretty easy, except it's a 18-story building directly in the flight path of San Jose International, so it's always kind of scary erecting a crane that's 250 feet tall. So heavy work, fast track job. That was one of my favorites. I did a Genentech central steam plant facility, which was a huge project. Project engineer on that site. I did the city of Palo Alto, their municipality building, when it was fully occupied. So it was a lot of challenges, but we replaced 90% of their equipment in that building while it was occupied by the city lawyers, judges, Their police station is headquartered in the building. Their 911 call facility. I mean, it's very high risk, and it was a very sensitive, high profile job. But we beat the schedule by 3 months, so it did pretty well, and they were very happy. And all of these people are current customers still. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's a little pressure when they're inside
A lot
the
of
building.
pressure.
You're having to work on
They're-
that.
they're physically at your construction meeting.
Right,
So.
right, yeah, that's interesting. So I know obviously ACO knew about George H. Wilson, but I'm interested in you two personally. Did the name George, because obviously they've done projects not only here, but Monterey County and in the Bay Area as well. How familiar were you with George H. in terms of just as a company prior to now working here?
Go ahead.
All right, well, so in previous life, I worked for a company that manufactured and distributed and sold sheet metal. And that goes back to the very early employment, history of mine. And so at that point, I knew Blue as a young man, and I knew of George H. Wilson. They've always had a very upstanding reputation within the community, within the contracting community. And so when you thought of good contractors, their name was always recognized. And so I'm very happy to be part of that legacy now.
Yeah, it's historically I used to compete against George Wilson. Being a person from the South Bay, I was trying to expand my business down towards Gilroy and into the Watsonville area, and even sometimes over the hill. Competing against George Wilson was always very tough. They're a very ethical company, and same with ACO. But their brand is everything. People personally know people here. They're known throughout the community of being fair and providing you with a quality product. So it was always very tough to come over the hill. Not just because of labor rates. Not just, we have a little bit more expensive labor rate. On the other side of the hill, we use people from different unions, and we would try to compete against them. So I wasn't very successful competing against George Wilson. But in the past, actually, it's kind of a funny story. One of the biggest projects over here on this side of the hill, located in Scotts Valley, was the old Borland campus. Blue's father did the plumbing on that project. My father did the HVAC on that project. So they knew each other very well. So it was kind of their contracts weren't bound together. It was I think a multi-prime kind of scenario where multiple subcontractors obviously are under one ownership. So they worked together for at least a couple of years on that project. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's a great history. Yeah, no, Blue's father, Jim, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that that was kind of your introduction or your knowledge to them prior to starting and kind of creating this merger of the companies, or this sort of, I don't want to call it a takeover because that sounds kind of hostile, but just a union. Let's call it a union. What is it about George H. that kind of you see now, now you're kind of in on it and on the inside? What is it about George H. that you think kind of resonates with people and with yourselves?
Sure. Well, myself is, when I first met Tom and Blue, I instantly liked them. Salt of the earth people. But when I first walked into this facility, it was like walking into the old ACO San Carlos office back in the heyday. It was really kind of our first endeavor of developing a Northern California facility for ACO, because being an LA-based company, it was like, let's try to migrate and take advantage of the Silicon Valley, work. And it was, but walking into this facility, it's identical to what we had in ACO San Carlos before we had the million square foot facility that we have over in San Leandro today. So it was like, man, I just felt like I was back into a time warp when I was an 8-year-old kid running around the shop, with people breaking metal and welding pipes. So it was kind of interesting for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How about for you?
Well, what I first of all, again, Blue and Tom are just absolutely wonderful people. I started the transition about 3 to 4 months ago, and then I've been full-time since October 1st, and they have accepted me just like another member of the family. And so our day-to-day work has been very cordial and wonderful, and we actually enjoy, the interaction. Secondly, as I touched on earlier, the reputation and the name brand in the community in Santa Cruz, and for that matter, all Monterey Bay, is so good that we as a company have elected to continue that name and that legacy and work with it. And so when I go out there, I'm very happy to have the red hat on, and because the ACO blue hat switched to red hat in this geography here, we're still says at the bottom we're an ACO company, which is wonderful. But I have no kind of hesitation to say that I'm part of George H. Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And so you said it's been a brief time, but in that brief time you've been out in the community and representing now George H.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
is the reaction that you get?
Well, a lot of the introductions are through Blue or Tom, where I go and walk it with them and get the introduction. It's been always very warm, so it's really a good feeling.
Yeah, I think we're proud to fly the George Wilson flag, but they're also very proud to be a part of ACO. I think that was kind of a really remarkable, thing as far as a merger goes between our two companies. That's kind of what we do during acquisitions. It's not like we're gonna acquire a company because we just want a footprint. It's like we go through a vetting process. Does their culture match our culture? Is what they do very similar to what we do? Are their processes similar to ours? Do they have forward thinking on newer technologies and want to get better and more efficient and start to adapt? Are they providing a culture for their people to succeed? It was very similar. So it was just kind of a natural merger.
Okay. So you touched on it. If you could tell us what is it about the ACO culture and sort of, just identity that also resonates in George H. in terms of what is that culture, what is it represent, what does it mean to be an ACO employee or a George H. employee?
They're smart, driven, intellectual people that look at projects very similarly to us. It's just a different platform. The way they estimate is very similar to the way we estimate, but we're using an Excel spreadsheet and they're using a different format. But Blue and I, when I kind of came over to George Wilson, we would bid jobs with each other / against each other. I would do it on my Excel estimate. He would do it on his handwritten page, right? A piece of paper. At the end of the day, it was always like maybe 2 to 5% deviation. We look at things very similar. So I thought that was pretty remarkable, But everybody in this office is driven and motivated. So.
And another really parallel is when you go walk around ACO, you find people that have been there forever. Mm-hmm. And that's because once they get to know an individual and they want them to succeed, and if you desire to go the route of project management or the route of design or the route of just pure management, whatever passion you have, they will let you succeed and go do that. And so they always find the right role that you enjoy. And when I walk these halls here now, it's the same thing. People have come in here and they've had one role, but they were passionate about something else, and now that's what they're doing, and they're here long term. So that same valuing their people and employees, that was their hallmark. That's ACO's hallmark. And I say that with only 13 years at ACO, and I say only 13 because when I walk around, there's, like Rich is younger than me, but he's been here longer. And there's many other examples of that. Yeah. And I guess fortunately, I had to also experience others and then know when it's good. And so when you have that, because the saying is the grass is green always on the other side. But when you actually have been on the other side of the fence and you get to the other greener side, you're like, wow, this is really good pastures, and that's what's been.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Yeah, and what I've obviously been talking to a lot of George H. employees who are longtime employees like yourself, and they talk about sort of the family-like
Yeah.
atmosphere that they've had, like you said, 20, 30, 40 years, some of these guys.
Right.
So similar with ACO.
Very, very similar. Yeah, actually, it's so we do a 10-year watch ceremony every year, and every year there's a couple of people that are receiving their 25-year watches, and there are a couple of people that are receiving their 30-plus year watches, and it's always pretty interesting. It's kind of funny too, because you always get the 10-year watch guys, and you kind of, or people, and you kind of look over and go, that guy's been here for 5 years or 10 years. It's like, wow, you know, it doesn't seem that long ago, but it's pretty amazing. But it's nice to see people stay here. It's a very large company, but we still operate like a mom and pop shop. You know, it's like the family operated $1.5 billion corporation. We are a privately held company, so we're an ESOP company, and we take a lot of pride in that. You know, to provide retirement packages to everybody from our top level executives down to a person really sitting at the front desk at the building. You know, it's pretty amazing. We're very proud of it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So then you said 10-year watch ceremony. Are they getting an actual watch?
Yeah.
I'm actually wearing mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. And so you get one at 10 and then 20?
25.
10, 20, 25?
No, 10, 25.
Oh, okay.
I know I'm missing it by 3 years right now. I'm kind of salivating a little bit because I'm seeing the watches that they get at the 10-year. I'm going, that's not what I got at my 10-year. They've gotten kind of fancy lately, so
that was my question. Is the 10-year watch different from the 25-year watch?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it definitely is.
A little bigger, a little nicer.
Yeah, you get to select it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
under a certain budget
That's awesome.
number.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm curious for both of you, what do you see as sort of the future? What do you hope that ACO and George H. kind of become together in terms of this acquisition? What are your goals? What would you like to see happen?
Well, that's one reason why I took this assignment, is that I see a lot of, several dynamics that's in play here is that the Monterey, Santa Cruz area, the infrastructure is getting old, and there's a lot of pressure for UC campuses and other things that exist around here to update. So we see there's going to be a growth, and so in that growth we want to be part of that, and we're going to do it with George H. Wilson brand. We're going to follow the same tradition. We're going to make sure that we deliver to our customers, and we're committed to quality, and we're committed to having that legacy continue for both ACO and George Wilson. So what we see is growth. What we see is locally hiring people. In fact, we've already been doing some of that as we're adding to our roster. The 3 young people that have just recently hired are all just local people. And so that's going to continue because, commute in the Bay Area is not easy anymore. People don't want to drive down to San Jose or live in San Jose and come up here. And so we're happy to be part of the community, contribute to the community, hire from the same community. And so that's how we see the future.
Similar?
Very similar. Yeah, we want to be a part of this. Again, the quality of craftsmanship, the way we look at projects, service, customer service, very similar. With all the redevelopment that's going on in this corridor from Santa Cruz all the way down to Monterey, that whole area is going to change. People, they're not, in San Jose they're building on top of each other now. It seems like they're building up because they're running out of room. But out here it definitely will be changing, I would say in the next 10 years, and we want to be a part of that. So,
okay.
Yeah, exciting.
Awesome. Anything else that you think our viewers need to know about either ACO or George H. or anything else that I didn't cover that you want to make sure people who watch this know from your perspective on all this stuff?
Earlier I was going to comment that in some respect, what we do is also art. So yes, the architects do draw the beautiful building and the edifice they want everybody to see, but behind the scene, my wife always laughs that I walk into any restaurant or any building and the first thing I do is I'm looking up. And when I see exposed ductwork or exposed pipe, I see the pride in workmanship. And really, there are some projects that I've been on and where you see the union trained workmanship, that when you look at the spacing and you look at the angles and you look at how they laid it out, it is artwork. And so that comes with a lot of training, that comes with a lot of support. And so I see there's, and you know, this building, actually you walk in, you see some of the brushed stainless stuff that we have up front. Those are some of the things that are really truly art. And as a company, ACO, in our new headquarters in Pasadena, when you actually walk in every floor, you'll find that they have taken piping or sheet metal and they've made a lot of artwork. And some of those are on display just to show that we take pride in what we do.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a hard job. It's a hard job from concept to design to execution to commissioning to turning it over to a customer. And on all of those aspects, I think, you know, we take a lot of pride in it, just like George Wilson, and we want to continue that tradition. I'm just laughing because I do the same thing. Everybody, I think, in our trade really kind of does the same thing. You know, you walk into a Starbucks, you walk into a restaurant, you walk into anywhere, and you just you start either appreciating it or you either have an opinion of it.
Right.
You know, like, man, I wouldn't have done that, but I would have done this, or I would have spun that. You have more room, and you know, but it's never in a malicious sense. It's just in, you know, that's how they look at it, and that's how I would look at it.
Right,
So it's pretty fun. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Okay, well that's about all I got for you. So like
Very
I
good.
said,
Yeah.
And it sounds like, well, I guess so. You've met, obviously, both of you know Tom and Blue,
Yeah.
and then the rest of the Wilson family. Have you
I've met Julie, she works with us here,
Right.
but we haven't met the one brother who hasn't been involved in the company, but
Peter.
I've heard him, Peter.
Yep.
Pete,
So I'd love to
Yep.
meet him one day. I actually
Peter.
been invited to Tom's house, met Connie, I've met Blue's wife, so yeah, we're definitely.
Yeah. I was here the day that they announced that we were merging, and that was really eye-opening. So the entire family was here, significant others were here, the entire workforce was here. There was a lot of pressure, I think. I was like, geez, I don't know how they're going to take this,
Right.
you know, because obviously, you know, this is a homegrown business, and it's a family business, you know, multiple generations. I think that's why I've always identified with the way they've operated over here, because I've always felt that way about ACO. Obviously, my dad worked at ACO in '79 all the way up until '98, and then I started full time in '98. So that's all I kind of knew. I grew up around it. So.
Did you guys cross over at all?
My dad passed in in '98.
Okay.
But yeah, I was working in the field on my father's projects while I wasn't going through college.
Okay.
So it was kind of interesting.
So you were working for him in a sense.
A little bit. I was in the field and he was in the office.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a project manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm saying you were working on the
Oh
project.
yeah, I was working on his projects.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
That's actually where I really just kind of fell in love. I mean, it's, you know, so the Google headquarters currently, you know, obviously in Mountain View. It's a 4-building business campus. That wasn't obviously built up out of the ground for Google. Back in the heyday, it was Silicon Graphics, and that was my very first job at Silicon Graphics, watching this massive campus go up out of the ground. And I never really knew how big the jobs my father actually did until I saw that. And I always thought it was very cool. They used to call him the governor. on the job site. And obviously a very young Gary Filizetti from DevCon, and
Right.
you know, Gary used to drive his Lotus on site and that kind of good stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So you, like I said, so you've met the Wilson family when you had the big announcement. So yeah, I mean it's a family business, and I'm sure you both know. I mean, those red trucks are iconic. It's like
Sure.
everyone sees those. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
this is the real deal. We know we're good. We know that, you know,
Yeah.
this
Absolutely.
job's going to get done. We know they're going to have integrity. And it sounds like that's what ACCO's based on too, which makes it,
Absolutely.
I'm sure that's why they were like, yeah, let's do it. So
Right. Yep.
that's awesome. All right, gentlemen, well, I think we've taken enough of your time, so
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
appreciate your help. And
Yeah.
All right.
No problem.
get this going, and we look forward to seeing you whenever we get it all done.
All right. Thank you.
Nice to
Good
meet
to
you.
meet you. Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
luck.
All righty.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Tareq.
Ralph.
Yes, sir. We'll see you again. So, Rich, you're a sports guy.
I am a sports guy.
Okay.
I'm some would say a fanatic.
Okay. Who's your teams?
So San Jose guy, California kid. So
My stomach growled
But I-
loud at football.
I'm a Bears fan.
Okay.
I hate to say it because they're awful,
Yeah.
but
I hope it didn't
but
pick it up
the
on
funny thing is, anything in the
microphone.
I root for Bears.
I didn't
Doesn't-
hear it.
Baseball, hockey, football, I don't care.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But baseball, obviously, Giants guy.
Yeah.
Hockey, San Jose.
Yeah.
It's like my crown jewel. If we ever win a Stanley Cup, it'd be amazing.
So, it's like,
Sorry, Nico, I'll be right back.
I feel blessed and cursed, right?
Right.
I feel blessed that they're in it every year.
Right.
But then cursed that they can't actually get it. It's like you appreciate it, because
Yeah.
some teams, it's like they never even get to the playoffs.
Right.
There's the Sharks every year.
Right,
They're in
right.
there, and you're like, come on, this is, you know.
How about you? Sports
Yeah,
guy?
yeah, oh yeah, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Grew up, born, you know, played them and watched them, and I used to work in sports television.
Oh, wow.
Prior to being a teacher.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. Have any hobbies? Do you do like mountain biking like
yeah.
these guys?
Yeah,
cycling?
yeah, bike, play a lot of golf,
Okay.
a lot of tennis.
Yep.
You know, the old guy active sports. I'm not on the fast